Am I left or am I right wing? Now, most people probably assume I'm extremely right wing because, hey, I've got the check shirt on, I got the baseball cap on, I look like a right wing American, but I've got an English accent, so that kind of throws people out a bit. But yeah, that's normally the judgment I get. I'm pretty sort of straightforward with my advice. I don't beat around the bush too much. So that also leads people to think I'm going to be extremely right wing. And I wanted to talk a bit about that and about some of the assumptions people make online and about being left and right wing and why I've got some issues with this whole polarized situation we're in at the moment. So I don't actually see myself as particularly right wing. I don't see myself as left wing either. I've got issues at the extreme end on both of those. And one of the big problems I see with the internet, look, the internet is fantastic. It's given us the ability to make these videos. We've got news coming in from all around the world. We've never had such a wealth of information as we do now, but along with that comes also a lot of false information, a lot of nonsense, a lot of bad information, and it's really, really polarized people because it's become an echo chamber, you know, and the people in the sort of far left camps surround themselves with other people that are far left, and they just perpetuate the same sort of nonsense to one another, and they just get worse and worse and worse, and exactly the same happens to the far right. And before you know it, it's like everyone on the internet has to pick a side. And it's not just about being far left or far right, it's even divided up smaller than that. That there's all these different sort of little clans on the internet that you're supposed to either be in or not be in. You know, you've got these guys that are into like the red pill philosophy. And if you don't abide by their philosophy 100%, then you're a simp and, you know, you're sheeple and you don't know what you're talking about. And you've got people that are into conspiracy theories. And if you don't buy into all their conspiracy theories, then you're a sheeple and, you know, you're no good and you don't know what you're on about. There's people that are absolutely obsessed with this new world order and they think that there's a global conspiracy and that we're all going to be turned into slaves with digital things in our arms and whatever. And if you don't believe them and you don't agree with 100% of everything they say, then they're going to sort of disown you. And the same with the left and right wing. You know, if you don't agree with everything that the right wing person says, then you're not, you know, right wing. And the same goes for the left. If you don't agree with every single extreme left policy, then you can't be left wing either. And that's absolutely crazy. You know, I don't know how we've gotten to this situation because there's no sense in that. Where is the sense in me selecting a group and every single thing that that group says, that let's say they have a manifesto of things that they believe in, and I'm going to just believe everything that they believe in 100%, every single thing. I'm not going to question any of it. Like, that is absolutely insane. There's never been a period in history where that's been correct. There's been people that have been forced to be in groups and been forced to comply. But, you know, most of the time those people don't really comply. They don't really agree. And now we're supposed to live in a democracy. We have a choice. And I mean, people like Andrew Tate kind of sum this up for me. And it's not even about Andrew Tate. It's about his followers. So there's a few things that that guy says that I 100% agree with. And I like some of the things he says. You know, he's telling people to basically take responsibility, get off their asses, go and do some work, make yourself a better person, go to the gym, all these different things. Those are good messages. Then there's some messages that he said before that I didn't particularly agree with. And it's like, if you don't agree with some of the things he says, his followers will rip into you online and say, oh, you're no good, you're not one of us. Well, A, I don't particularly want to be one of them. You know, I don't want to be some group follower. And I think actually the person I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure he would be fine to have a debate with someone regarding whether or not I believed everything he said and taking some of the things he said and talking to him about it. In fact, he does that quite often on, you know, on shows. He talks to people like Piers Morgan. They have some pretty good debates. That's healthy to question things. And, you know, I wouldn't expect If I've got subscribers on here, I don't expect the subscribers that I've got on here to like everything I do and say, because I'm a human being. I've got flaws. I've got differences in my personality that you're not going to be an exact match for me. So I might make a video that you don't particularly like. That doesn't mean that we can't be friends, that you can't like some of the other videos. Just move on past that video that you don't like and like the next one. Because the same goes for you. If I got to know all of you and you told me all the things that you do, there will be things that I find boring or I don't like or I don't maybe politically or religiously agree with, but that doesn't matter. We could still be friends. I don't need to 100% agree with every single thing. And it's like, if you don't agree with everything, you know, people want to cancel someone because they've said one thing that they don't agree with, even though they might agree with 99.9% of everything else that that person's ever said in their life. And it's like the internet holds us so accountable now. We've got to be accountable for 100% of everything we've ever said in the history of the internet, because people can check back on you, and if they can find one single thing that they don't like or don't agree with, then hey, you could be in big trouble. But I don't know of any human being on the planet that could look back at their lives and not have said something stupid once before. You know, I thank God that I'm the age I am, because if you'd have recorded everything I said when I was in my early 20s, I would be cancelled left, right and centre, because I had so many stupid ideas back then, and I had so many beliefs that I was really passionate about at the time. And as I got older and more experienced, I realised that they were pretty immature. They were not particularly driven by, you know, me thinking as a practical and scientific thinker. They were driven by other things. You know, when you're in your early 20s, you're desperate to find girlfriends, you know, all kinds of things are going on. So those are the things that are going to drive your interests and the things that you talk about. Those aren't necessarily going to be the way that you shape your philosophy of life later on with more experience. So I feel pretty sorry for people that have every single sort of detail of their lives being recorded by social media now, that if they get any sort of a following online, that people can then track back and have a look over their content and kind of moan about it. I've digressed a bit from the political side, but I think you get where I'm going with this. There's a lot of stuff that I like about the sort of middle right wing. You know, I believe that, you know, I'm pretty conscientious. I like the fact that the right wing are conscientious, that they have a good work ethic, that they kind of have an expectation that we all mix in and we all do our job in society, because there's nothing more annoying than being in a community when some people just sit around on their bums and allow the other people to go out and do all the work and pay for everything. You know, we've got friendship groups, I'm sure you've experienced, that are like that, where there's always this one guy who doesn't pay for any drinks and he never pays for any meals, and he always sort of disappears to the toilet when the bill arrives. And in the end, you know, that guy doesn't end up having many friends, because no one wants to hang around with someone who's lazy like that. It's not a productive thing to do in society. So there's something I like about the right wing. I also like a sort of libertarian mindset, which is fairly right wing, which is, I think that human beings should have more say over, you know, their personal lives. I don't particularly like government overreach. I don't want the government dictating everything that I can do and say and everything that I can own. I don't particularly want the government to license every single part of my life. But then I go on the other side of things and I'm like, well, that works for people that are together and are, you know, capable and have a decent IQ. But when you throw people maybe that aren't into the mix, what happens there? You know, what happens if you allow them free reign to do and say what they like and get access to whatever they like? Then you start to get problems. So they're going to be the lowest common denominator and you're going to suffer for it, basically. And I take that point on board as well. And there's things I like about the left. You know, the migration issue comes up a lot in the comments, and I get that. You know, on the case of the more right-wing people, they're completely anti immigration, because we've all seen some of the scenes that have been going on in the European countries where we've imported people that are basically coming from war zones, who for 20 or 30 years, these people have lived in fairly lawless societies, and they've solved problems by hacking each other with machetes. And then they've come over to the UK or to another European country, and they're continuing to behave in that manner. But I also take the left-wing position on board that among those people, there are women and children and doctors and solicitors and people that actually have useful skills, that aren't people that are hacking at others with machetes. And, you know, A, they're useful for the country, and B, you know, we do have a duty of care for people that are in these war-torn countries, that some of which we have to take responsibility for. You know, what happened out in Afghanistan, we've got some responsibility there to make sure we're looking after people that were helping us while we're over there. There was people that were helping our troops while we're over there, and they've now been left in a country where they're probably going to get tortured or slaughtered because they would be deemed, you know, traitors in that regime now. So there's all kind of complex nuances to that. But I don't abide by the extreme left's idea that every single person that wants to move to another country should just be allowed to. It should be free migration for all, because what ends up happening is the worst, you know, the worst scrapings from the bottom of the barrel will be the people that migrate mostly. Because if you're a doctor in another country and you've got a nice house and a good job, it doesn't matter if England say you can come here or Europe says you can go there. You're probably quite happy where you are around your family. You've got a good job. You've got a nice house. The people that are going to be really tempted to move are people that have got very little. Maybe they're petty criminals. Maybe they're on the run. You know, I met a lot of guys that got into the security work that were basically on the run from other countries because they'd got involved in gangs and crime, and they'd come over here to continue becoming involved in gangs and crime and drug dealing, and they thought they could do it here with a bit more impunity, and there wouldn't be such a likelihood of them getting locked up in a horrific prison or killed by rival gang members. So all these things have a nuance, and there's no completely right and completely wrong answers there. And certainly I don't prescribe to either the far right's idea of what's the correct answer or the far left. So I've got a bit of a cherry picking from all of them, you know. And that pretty much sums up my political ideology. I've got a lot of opinions on a lot of the stuff that's happening, but none of it particularly falls in a specific camp. It's generally cherry picked from a few different ones. I enjoy listening to Jordan Peterson. If there was a politician that mimicked Peterson, or if Peterson became a politician, I would vote for that guy. He seems to be seen as very right-wing. I don't particularly find him to be very right-wing. I think he's pretty much based on, you know, statistics and data and common sense. I think the extreme left see him as right-wing because it suits them, because the last thing they want is some of their ideals shot down by statistics, and as soon as you start questioning anything they say and providing them with scientific evidence, they kind of freak out and scream at you and call you a Nazi. And I'm pretty sure that's where most of his issues have come from. But that's about as close as I am to being in complete agreement with someone. But there's even some of the things that that guy says that I would definitely be interested to question and discuss with him more. He's way more intelligent than me, so he'd probably wrap me up, and I'd probably end up agreeing with everything he said. But the point being, I'm not going to just naturally agree with everything because I'm like some sort of worshipper of his. And we should all try and get out of that situation. You know, no one should be just blindly worshipping a person or some sort of group online. Think for yourself. Look at what they represent. There might be parts of their ideology that are good and relevant to you, and it's just fine as well that if there's parts that aren't, that you can vocalize that. You don't have to be a member of that group. You can be a member of your own group and make up your own mind. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope that is of some interest to people, and it certainly answers the question on where I sit politically, which is pretty much nowhere. I just sit in the land of common sense, hopefully. Have a great one. I'll talk to you all soon.